Well, hello there. I'm going to be reading what I thought was going to be my favorite chapter, but it looks like majority of this chapter actually just lists people. So I'm going to probably turn part of this into a story time. Not this what do you call it? Not this particular video because we are reading specifically from this chapter, but I am going to have more stories on each one of them because I find I'm a true just to give a little background, I'm a true crime junkie, but I find serial killers really fascinating. And if you guys don't already know, as adoptees, we are 15% more likely to become serial killers. So, yes, we are reading The Adopted Killers. Okay, anyway. Um, so, yeah, be prepared for a whole lot of that because fascination. Anyway, let's go. So, Lori Carangelo starts off the chapter with this quote: I know I made a hole in a lot of people's hearts and souls, but probably I had the biggest. Keith Chull Weaver, who killed his adoptive parents and sister. So, this is called Adopted Killers, and this is how it starts. Issues concerning identity, rejection, heritability, and secrecy inherent in sealed adoptions for the past half-century have been cited by defense attorneys. Adoption as a potential contribution to a serial killer's makeup and motivation is fascinating to research because it creates two questions. The first question is whether nature, the biological parents, may have left their child with a defective gene, that's in quotes, but no gene for quote unquote criminality have been identified. Then, how does one explain the rage with which an adoptee who was never physically or sexually abused and does not meet the legal definition of being quote unquote mentally ill, yet stabbed his loving adoptive mother to death 150 times? Whew, that is gruesome. That is gruesome. I don't know. I'm gonna have to put trigger warnings on these videos sometimes. Anywho, let's continue. The second question researchers ponder is whether nurture, the environment in which the adopters raised the adopted child, may be one in which he is constantly on guard to fulfill his adopter's expectations, lest a misstep result in another loss, which undermines the sense of identity in a fragile youth to such a degree that even in adulthood the adoptee is preoccupied with fantasizing as to whether his true parents were good or bad. Was the mother a prostitute, a nun? Was the father a gangster, a hero, and why did they reject him? Does the adoption itself constitute emotional child abuse? I mean, I can answer that one, but okay, continuing on. And why did they wait? And during the trial of Philip Markoff, who was nicknamed the Craigslist Killer, who was not adopted, by the way, an expert witness psychologist for the defense explained a fractured identity can result in violence. There is no identity more fractured than that of an adoptee. In 1992, psychologist David Kirshner's study abstract was published in the National Criminal Justice Reference Service, nicknamed NCJRS, which was called Understanding Adoptees Who Kill, Disassociation, Patricide, and the Psychodynamics of Adoption. To wit, adoption is a critical factor in which psychopathology of many adopted killers, yet one that is often overlooked. While antisocial behaviors are often characteristic of children and adolescents, generally adopted children have a paradoxical identity. They are both of the adoptive family and different from it. In a family climate of anxiety and denial, where children feel threatened, they will suffer severe why am I having trouble reading today? Severe impediments to achieving a positive, coherent self-image and a mature superego. Those prone to the adopted child syndrome are especially prone to disassociation and to multiple personality disorder, also known as dissociative identity disorder now, called DID. There is considerable denial about adoptee violence by special interests that promote secret adoptions. They don't want it examined. They defend such denial on the premise that fewer people would adopt. Yeah, because that's the goal. That's the goal that we. Oh my God, sorry. I'm going off on a rant, but yeah, that would be something that would be a good thing because it's not necessary in most cases, and when it is, there are other legal options. But my gosh, they don't get it. Anywho, that is on the legal system. All right, continuing on. That is like saying, let's not understand what makes a serial killer the way he is. Least they have fewer serial killers. Most psychotherapists have been aware that adoptees make up a significant portion of their practice. 65 to 85% of Coldwater's internees are adoptees, and that is by Dr. Lee Bloom, Coldwater Canyon Center in Growing Up Behind Bars. Wow. At times, adoptees represented as much as 50% of Coldwater's hospitalized population, and that is by Richard Sherman, psychologist at Coldwater in 1997. Some experts challenge the significance of such numbers, pointing out that adoptees are predominantly middle class and therefore much more likely to seek professional help for their children. But Kirshner points out most of the adopted kids he sees are referred by a probation department, whereas other adopted kids are referred by the juvenile courts. In one of the largest studies in the nation, adopted children at Rutgers University, this is by David Prodzinski, PhD, observed uncommunicative behavior and hyperactivity in the boys. Among the girls, he observed depression, hyperactivity, delinquency, and surprisingly aggression. Except for an occasional reference regarding their own family background, no more work has linked every serial killer by the abnormality of their adoptive status or perceived abandonment. Ted Bundy, yes, by the way, his is very complex. Hold on a second. Let me just finish this paragraph and I will explain a little bit more about him. I do want to do a whole video on him though because it's fascinating. And I mean that because, again, his is very complex. But anyway, Ted Bundy biographers Michaud and Ainsworth say Ted's emotional growth stopped after he learned he was illegitimate at age 13. It was like I hit a brick wall, Bundy said. Alright, so pausing here, with Ted Bundy, he was a kinship guardianship, or kinship adoption. So his grandparents actually adopted him. And he lived as if his mother was his sister. That's what he's always been told. And then when he was 13, he was then told that his sister was actually his mother. And so it's very confusing to a child. Like, it's no wonder we're at a higher rate to become serial killers when you do stupid shit like that, like the secrecy, the lies. Yeah, it's quite something. Now, I do want to pause for a moment. This is not statistics. This has nothing to do with the book here, but this is something that fellow adoptees and I are talking about, is where the kinship guardianship, especially if they know, does not have the same trauma. They have similar traumas, but not always the same as those that are fully adopted. Oftentimes, their family is still reflected back into them because they're around family members, as well as their heritage, their culture, which is super, super important. Um, but oftentimes, even in those circumstances, it is still a traumatic event that they have gone through. They're still separated from their family, their biological parents, and they're also not oftenly recognize that traumatic event and those trauma responses. Anywho, we're continuing on. Infants are left in the state of hyperarousal due to evaluated hormone levels if they're snatched from their mothers upon delivery. And this was done by Joseph Chifton Pierce in Evaluations End in 1992. Twins and triplets separated at birth not only from their mothers but also from each other often experience separation anxiety. Even non-adopted mass murdering children use anger to cover up pain. That's true. Andy Williams, who was 15, deemed the Santee school shooter suffered family dismemberment and bullying in school that sent him into a downward spiral of rejection, isolation, and anger. Seth Pravaki, 18, said he was angry because his father had told him that he didn't love him anymore and wanted to move out of their Michigan home. Seth then murdered his whole family, and this was according to Wikipedia, as well as Seth Pravaki confession by the Muskegon Daily News back in 2010. All right. 430 adopted killers. From adopted killers, 430 adoptees who killed, how and why they did it. Another book by Lori Carangel, which I will cover, by the way, which is an in-depth compilation of their stories from named sources, including excerpted news clips and recorded in their own words, most with their photos, including an index. The 430 killers are individually profiled, categorized by type of killing: serial killers, those who killed adoptive parents, mass murderers such as school shooters, and those who killed individuals who were strangers, a few who actually ended up killing their biological parents. And they are Daphne Abdella, Charles Frederick Albright, aka the Eyeball Killer, Antoine, aka Twan D. Anderson, Charles D. Andrews, Joseph Atkins, Kenneth Bayer, Jeremy Balmer, David M. Barnett, Cesar Francisco Barone, Juana, I don't know if I said that one, Juana Barraza, aka the Old Lady Killer, Wergen Barchis, Henry Baxter, Graham Bianage, Donald Birdsley, Jerry Belmont, Bill J. Benefiel Jr., Robert Lee Bennett Jr., aka Handcuff Man, David Berkowitz, aka the son of Sam, Paul Kenneth Bernardo, he was part of the Ken and Barbie killers, Michael Bresci, Kenneth Angelo Bianchi, the Hillside Stranglers, Carlos Alonzo Bickus, Lawrence Sigmund Bittaker, Robert Smelly Bob Black, Anthony Blummel, Charles Bukuk, Gladys Bukuk, Clifford Holt Bogus, William George Bonin, Werner Boost, aka the couples killer, Matthew Boulette, Michael Bourgois Greer, Lizzie Borden. Oh, hey, how about that? Sorry, some you'll recognize, right? Gary Ray Bowles, and he was the Florida gay bar murderers. Ian Brady was Moore's murderers. Carl Edward Brewer, Sandra Camille Bridewell, the Black Widow. Bo Evan Brigham, Randall Lamont Britton, Centonia Brown, Stephen Joseph Bruno, Michael Brewster, Harry Bryan, Theodore aka Ted Bundy, the co-ed killer, Angelo Bruno, also Hillside Stranglers, Tim Caffrey, Sue Satchie, 10 California Boy, I don't know what that is, but okay. Thomas Camerlenjo, Andrew Andrew Karen, Rodney Francis Cameron, the Lonely Hearts Killer, Patrick Campbell, Joseph John Cannon, Michael Carrero, Marcus Carter, Sean Carter, Daniel Cassell, Stephen David Catlin, Ryan Champion, Vincent P.D. Chandler, Jeffrey Chase, Luigi Ciatti, Tucker Sapriano, Dylan Clark, James B. Clark Jr., Hugo Clayton, Jacob S. Clemens, Jamie Piaro Cole, Alton Coleman, Joseph Zimmerman Joseph Collier, aka Peter Zimmer, John Norman Collins, also co-ed killer, Rory Conde, the Tamani killer, Joshua Cook, James Korn, Marcus Cotton, Robert Otis Colson, Joni Michael Cox, Andre M. Crawford, Kenneth Carl Crawford III, Nicholas Cruz, who was one of the Parkland, Florida school shooters. Wow, I didn't know that one. That was more recent. Tracy Cunningham, Andrew Dalzell, Heather Marie Doust, Tony Day, Jessica Dean, Patrick DeGelic, Albert DeSalvo, who was a Boston Strangler, Michael Delvin, Monica Diaz, Matthew DeBondento Hecla, Matthew Dion, Boy Doe, Richard Dowdell, Henry Lee Dreyer, Duff Smith Markham, Gayton Dugas, the Patient Zero, Schlack Duploy, Cameron Dye, Garrett Dye, John Patrick Eastlack, Boy Eckert, Jeannie Jane Ewig, Larry Ealer, the Interstate Killer, Christine Falling, Randall Allen Fears, David Fowle, Patrick Hunter Ford, Joseph Foreman, Ryan James Fraser, William Freund, The Terror Campaign, Charles Allen Fuss, Melissa Fuss Abel Arrives, Margaret Fuss Branch, William Patrick Fife the Plumber, Travis Gallo, Wendy Gardner, Joseph Gardner, John Frank Gabor, Brad George, Guy Georges, Beast of the Bastille, Clayton Gerlach, Roderick Dramano, Sierra Goodman, Spencer Corey Goodman, Joseph Wayne Cook Gossman, Harrison T. Marty Graham, the Cookie Monster Killer. That's quite a name. Matthew Grant, Jennifer Irene Graves, Dana Sue Gray, Dorothea Helen Gray, also known as Dorothea Pont, Max Goffler, James Gunning, Marjorie Caldwell Hagen, William K. Bill Hale, also known as the Osage Killer, Edwin Ray Hall, Gabriel Hall, Thomas Hamilton, Dunblane School Shooter, Boy Hamlin, Justin Hansen, Ernest Lee Hargan, Edward Eddie Lee Harper Jr., Byron Andrew, Thomas Ronald Lewis Harries, Holly Harvey, Herschel Hatley, Donald Patrick Hauser, Robert A. Hawkins, the Westroads Mall shooter, Naomi Kimberly Heater, Mark St. Storm Heavy Runner, Charles Michael Hedlund, Lucas Luke John Hedler, Smiley Face Mall Bomber, that's lovely, Roger Scott Helm, Billy Lynn Hendricks, Kim Herco, Daniel Joe Hittle, Daryl Hoadley, Travis Hofstetter, James Egan Holmes, Robert Hoskins, Aaron Howard, Andrew Kyle Hulsley, Brandy Lynn Hungerford, Ronnie Leon Hyde, Boy James, Ronald James, Joshua Bradley Jenkins, Jacob Jett, Lamont S. Johnson, James L. Jones, Timothy Jason Jones, Jordan Joney, Joseph Callinger, who is the Philadelphia shoemaker, Moses Kamen, Danielle Caston, David Katz, Nicholas Kedrowitz, Daniel Jack Kelsall, who is the lover, Paul Kimball, Sante Kims, Alex King, Derek King, John William King, Martin James Kipp, Dr. Crazy, Kanoi Kipapa, I don't know if I said that right, Christopher Kirby, Yaroslav Kislov, Marjorie Knoller, Julian Knight, Kevin Nolfell, Paul John Knowles, the Casanova Killer, Joshua Commissary Javosky, Kevin Nolfell. I missed one. Where was I? Paul John Knowles, Joseph Robert Condoro, who was the Uncle Joe Killer, Christy Caslow, Timothy Wayne Cradgisser, Rex Allen Krebs, Paul W. Christopher LaLocque, School Shooter, Terrell L. Lacey, Carl LeGrand, Walter LeGrand, Domingo Lajosse, Star M. Lake, Jeffrey Timothy Landrigan, Thomas Lane III, who is the Ohio school shooter, Scott Lang. Hey, there's an Avenger on here. I'm just kidding, guys. Please. I was just trying to make a joke. Obviously, that's not really a Marvel Avenger, okay? If you know my reference, you know my reference. Anyway, Boy Lanier, Bruce George Peter Lee. Actually, going back to that, if y'all don't know, Loki was actually adopted. I'm going to be playing more movie stuff that's related to. I have a lot of planned content, so y'all, it's going to be never ending. I'm super excited. Anyway, where were we? Bruce George Peter Lee, Eric Lee, John Lee, Michael Legrand, Desiree Linares, Aaron Lind, Matthew Lindquist, William Darrell Lindsay, Elijah D. Lishing, William Lishk, Charlie Little Jr., Samuel Little, Thomas Littlecloud, Justin Ray Long, Preston Longo Christian, Lane, what? I'm so confused by that. Lonberg Lane, Pedro Alonso Lopez, Monster of the Andes, Richard Lusco, Terence Lasco, John Ingvar Lovegren, Gabriel MacDonald, Grace MacDonald, Michael Scott, Meglilo, Luca Magnota, Lee Boyd Malvo, aka the Beltway Snipers, Warlito Mann, Aaron Marcus, Jordan Marin Doan, Taylor Melissa Mary Marks, that's quite a name, Alexander Ray Martinez, Ashley Martinson, David McCourt, Alvaro Samuel McCrae, Damian McElrath, Robert McKnight, James McMath, Jonathan McMullen, Brandon Christopher Menard, Dwayne Miller, George Miller, Royce Mitchell, Christopher Monks, Lisa Montgomery. There's still a lot more to go. Robert Henry Moorman, Gregory Richard Mox, Raymond Muhammad, Travis Mullins, Javon Mosaz, James Michael Monroe, the Freeway Killers, Eric Leonard Nelson, Wakili Nigma, I don't know how to say that, Matthew Nidra, Patrick Nieranen, Roy Norris, Brenda O'Connell, Catherine O'Connell, Jonathan O'Driscoll, Stephen Oken, Paul O'Gorsman, 13 Ohio Boy, Marlene Louise Olive, Anatoly and Yakovic Onoprinko, Jeffrey Richard Oritz, Gabriel Parker, Bran E. Pagnem, Martin Payne, Eric Payne, Robert Jeffrey Peely, Michael James Perry, Angel Peterson, Frederick O. Phillips Jr., Darcy Pierce, Michael Pilato, Zachary E. Pine, Walker Wayne Pickleton, that's quite a name, Shane J. Pittis, Michael Pollard, Cody Posey, Tristan Potts, Holly Povovich, Stephen Jeffrey Pribernow, Timothy Brink, Christopher Pritchard, Patrick Edward Prudy, the Cleveland Elementary School Massacre, Marcelino Ramos, the Randall Case, also known as Michigan Boy, Justin Ray, Mark Reagan, Elena Janelle Rendell, John Loveman, Reese Randolph Reeves, Irene Reynolds, Jacqueline aka Nikki Reynolds, Michael Joe Rice Jr., Luther Charles Richards Jr., Christopher Aaron Richardson, Robert Conley Richardson III, Joel Rifkin, Matthew Riley, Boy Robinson, Ricky Rodriguez, Anthony L. Rogers, Dayton Leroy Rogers, who's also known as the Malala Forest Killer, Johnny Ross, Thomas Pinocchio Rung, Russian Boy Ashton Sachs, Dakota Salvadera, Peter Saunders, Ionit Silvio Savin, John Sowden, Charles Howard Smitty, Schmid Jr., Pied Piper of Tucson, Daryl Dwayne Scott, Sean Richard Sellers, Tommy Lynn Sells, Catherine Gypsy Share of the Manson family, Nicholas Shaughnessy, James Shulman, Timothy Scott Sherman, Alexis Shields, Roscana Sikorossi, James Joseph Shingleton, Moses Sithole, Matthew Skalitsky, Tia Marie Mitchell Skinner, Jeremy Skoz, SLD, Eric Smith, Bruno Lorenzo Smullen, James M. Snell, Charles Sabraj, aka the Bikini Killer, Robert Merlin Springler, the Black Widower, Josh Spearman, Richard Speck, Gerald Eugene Stano, Stephen Stein, Mark Ernie Steinlich, Gary Steinman, Galen Stevenson, Daniel Paul Studdard, Jeremy Strohmeyer, Kurt Allen Struberg, Tasha Stewart, Joseph Andrew Stober, Timothy Strugel, Rodney R. Struzman, Christopher Sutton, Larry Schwartz, Michael Schwartz, Isaiah R. Sweet, Jerry Soward, Marty M. Wait, that's weird. Tankliff, case overturned but not exonerated. Oh, of his case. Caleb David Taylor, Cameron Richard Terhune, Jonathan Testo, Dakota Thoroit, Sydney Thyssen, Beth Thomas, Douglas Christopher Thomas, Nigel Thomas, Bradley Ryan Thomason, Trent Thornburn, Jamie Ranch Thornton, Catherine Marie Tomasani, Tammy Marie Tomasani, Jennifer Tomes, Jane Topin, the Angel of Death, Otis Edward Toole, Marvin Matthew Triplett, James Jimmy Anthony Trelawney, Tuscan Boy, the Teacup Poisoner, Carlton Akey Turner, UK Adoptee, Johann Unterweger, who is known as the Vienna Strangler, Arnell Van Duyn, Freud Daniel Van Dyken, who is the Long Soldier, Kathy Van Osterhorn, Jordan Van Stroom, Asa Ray Vidinar, Juan Alberto Villarreal, Girl Vinoid, Susan Ellen Wade, Billy Ray Walden, Marcus Wallace, Stephen Watterson, Carl Coral, Eugene Watts, who was the Sunday Morning Slasher, Keith Chol Weaver, David Whiteman, Jeff Wise, who was the Red Lake school shooter, Leroy Welch III, Miriam White Jasmaya, also known as, Jasmaya, aka Jazz, Kinshma Whitehead, and then there was Tasmia, aka Taz, Janicia Whitehead, Kay Whitehead, Antonia Whitlow, Cody Wheeler, Stuart Wilkin, Brandon Williams, Tavares Eugene Williams, Michael Wilson, Winnipeg Boy, Wall Morans Frederick, Boywood, Woodard Herbert, Peter Woodcock, aka the David Michael Kruger, Luke Timms Woodham, David Wayne Woodruff, Bronson Woisenko, Eileen Carl Pittman Warnos, who was known as the Damsel of Death, Ron Worley, David Mitchell Thomas, Robert Lee Yates, the Spokane serial killer, Jennifer Nicole Yaskanis, Graham Frederick Young, Mikhail Young, Joe Yuskoff, Peter Zimmer, who was known as Joseph Anton Collier, and Sabrina Zunick. So that is the end of the chapter, but I do want to make note that there has been a study where all female serial killers were adopted. So I don't know if that tells you guys anything, but Yeah, I do plan on covering a lot of these people, eventually maybe all of them, but definitely the bigger serial killers, the well-known ones. Um, I know we're more about the healing, but maybe if we look at what snapped, what triggered them, we can help within ourselves. Um, I hope that helps, guys, and we're going to be moving on to the next part of this book.